Here's a video on how to change the oil on a Hyundai Elantra. This will work for, I believe, models 2011 to 2018, but honestly, overall, oil changes are pretty much synonymous across vehicles. So hopefully these tips and tricks will help you in case you are working on an Elantra or maybe another type of vehicle. But all you'll really need for this job is a ratchet and socket. Potentially you might need a filter wrench for the oil filter in case it's tight on there. The right type of oil for your vehicle, a new oil filter. Lastly, you'll need somewhere to catch all that oil and potentially a funnel. And even more than this, you should have a jack and jack stands. But I'm going to show you a way to do this job without jack or jack stands. Now, this isn't the best way by any means, but it is a way to change the oil if you are in a pinch or you're wanting to do this without those tools. Again, that said, it will be a lot easier to have a jack and jack stands, but regardless, let's get started. So we got to know what type of oil and how much we're going to need to use. So specifically here it says to use 4.23 quarts on the Hyundai Elantra. This is on Chapter 8 in case that's helpful for you. So if we're looking in our vehicle's manual, it tells us to use 4.23 quarts. And then usually in here it'll tell you the exact type of oil. So here's the classification, but if we go look over on the oil cap, it'll tell us something. So open up the hood and we can see this takes 5W20 oil. So first we need to get access to the engine. So what we'll do is come into the car. Underneath the door we'll see this latch. That opens up the hood in the front. We'll go around here and then put our hand underneath till we feel that little lever, pull it to the left and then lift. Now we can pop up the hood. So to do that, grab the cable down here and then put it up into this hole. And now we can get up here to change the oil. First thing that we'll want to do is remove this cap so that as we go underneath and we pop open the drain bolt, there won't be a vacuuming effect such that the oil will come out much easier, much faster. And you'll want your vehicle to be slightly warm, so you can, if the engine's cold, maybe run it for a few minutes before you get started. If you had just gone on a drive, I would wait just a little bit just because the engine can be really hot and the oil will be hot. You might burn yourself, but obviously it's possible, so just take that into account. Alright, so now if we go underneath the car, and if you don't have somewhere that you can jack up the car, what I do is I use the curb, which is actually pretty decently high. We're outside of my house, but if you don't have something like this that you can put one side of the vehicle up on, you're going to need a jack and jack stand. So I apologize if that makes this a little bit more intimidating, but it's not too hard once you feel comfortable enough to put the car under. Anyway, so once you're underneath the vehicle, not far underneath, if we look up, you see the skid plate, and then right here is the oil pan. Okay, so now that we're underneath here, again, this is the front of the car this way. If we look underneath by the left tire, or I guess the passenger tire, this right here is our oil pan. And if I pull you up a little bit more, you can see that drain bolt right there. And just in front of that oil pan, let's see if you can see it. Right there is the oil filter. So, I'll show you how to replace those right now. Alright, so now we want to undo this 17mm drain bolt. So, get my socket ready. And if this is the first time you're doing this, you might need a breaker bar, especially if you've taken it to like a quick lube place. Or sometimes it just gets tight on there over time, so just know that, you know, a small 3/8 ratchet might not do the job. But I'm going to crack this open first. Alright. Come on. Okay, there we go. And now I'm going to get my drain pan underneath so I can catch that oil. And now I'll put some gloves on. So I barely have enough room to work under here, which is why having a jack and jack stands makes this job nice. But essentially, have my pan a little bit further back than the bolt, because once I let this go, this is going to come out. I'll try and get you footage once maybe I'll move you up a little bit. Okay, so here we are up here, and just like that, letting the oil drain out. So I'll let that drain, and then we'll get that filter off once this is fully drained. Alright, once it's looking like that, it's pretty much drained. This is why it's important to do it on a level surface, because you want to get all that oil out. You won't always get every single drop of oil out over each oil change, but just know that having it more level is better. So once it's like this, it's essentially done. And what you'll want to do is, if you have a new washer for the drain bolt, I'll show you that again. You can see there's a little washer on here that you should replace. I'll be completely honest with you, I don't replace it unless when I tighten it back on and put the oil in, I see a leak. Usually these things can last a couple oil changes. It's best practice to change them and replace them each oil change, but to be realistic, not many people probably do. If you do, great. It's a couple cents worth doing, but I reuse them. So yeah, so now that this is drained, I'm going to move my drain out of the way, or my catch can, and then put this bolt back on. Alright, now with that drain bolt there in, all we want to do now is snug it up. So, get it on, give it once it's seated down tight, give it a tiny turn like that, and that's good. You really don't need to go tight on these. It's a drain bolt. You can strip the bolt, and then this becomes a more cumbersome job. So just get it tight like that. Shouldn't not take much leverage. Clean off the drain plug, so once we check it, once we put the new oil in, we know that there's no leaks. And now we can go for the filter, which is up here. Alright, so right behind our oil pan, right here you can see the oil filter. And honestly, it's as simple as lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. Sometimes these can be tight. And at the end of the video, I'll give you a preview of some of the types of wrenches that you can use to get these off. But if we can, let's see if we can just twist it to the right. Come on. Okay, I can feel it turning. So what now I'm gonna do now is this is the messiest part of the job. Is get my catch can right underneath here, and then I'm gonna start taking this off. And no oil is gonna probably start coming down your hand. So that's why it's kind of nice when this is a little bit cooler to do it that way. So let me see if I can brighten this up a little. So what we're going to do is just start twisting here. And it's okay, so just keep twisting here. Alright. Yep, you can see why it's nice to have that catch can right there, and that's why it's also nice to have gloves. Just keep it going, you'll feel it, and it'll come right off when it's ready. Almost there. Oop. And then just gonna let it lay down into the filter, or into the catch can. Alright, there we go. Alright, so with my new oil filter, what I'm going to do now is fill it with my new oil till it's at the top. I'll show you what that looks like once I fill it. You don't need to see me filling this. And then once I do that, I can put it underneath the car. And the reason that I fill it first is because when the car starts, this oil is going to be used. So we want to make sure that it's full of oil so that the car doesn't have a dry start. So anyway, I'm going to fill this off camera, show you what it looks like, and then we'll put it on. Alright, so as you can see, the oil is filled up all the way in there. And now what we want to do is, there's a little bit of oil here on the outskirts. You could clean that up. What you want to do is get some of that oil and lubricate this O-ring right here. so that the next time you want to try and get this off, it'll come off with just your hands instead of sometimes needing to use tools. Alright, so with that, let's get this on. Alright, just going to try and put you down here. Hopefully you can kind of see what's going on. So now all I want to do is spin this filter on. And it should go on very easy. You'll feel it catch. Okay, there we go. Okay. And there really should not be any issue tightening this on. If you start to feel any resistance, back it off and start again. Now I'm going to clean this off with my very much used rag here. I want to wipe off all the sides, make sure it's nice and clean, because what we'll do is once we put the new oil in, we'll want to check for any leaks. One more important note, when putting on the oil filter, you should not need to use tools. You might need to use two hands if you are having a slight little leak, but you should not need to use any sort of tools or wrenches to put this thing on. An important tip that I forgot to mention is when you take off the old filter, make sure this gasket comes along with it, because sometimes these can stick onto where you put the oil filter, and then if you have two gaskets, one from the new filter and this old one sticking on there, then you'll get a leak for sure. So just double check when you take this one off that the little washer comes along with it, the little ring. Alright, with everything done on the underside of the vehicle, now we can work on the top, and this is the easiest part. All we got to do now is pour in the correct quantity of oil. Now remember, my vehicle is on a little bit of a tilt, so I'm going to keep that factor in mind, but essentially all I'm going to do is I'm going to fill up most of the quantity that this Hyundai takes, and I believe it's like 4.23 quarts. So for me, I'm going to put in 4 quarts, then move my vehicle in where it's level, put in the rest just so I make sure I have a completely accurate reading. Honestly, it probably is not too far off how crooked I am, but honestly, since I'm doing this myself, I want to make sure it's done right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to fill this up with most of the oil and check the dipstick, and once I figure that the quantity is level at a level that I feel comfortable enough to drive the vehicle, then I'll move it to a level surface and put the rest in. Alright, so I've now put 4 quarts into this engine here, and I know it takes 4.23, so I think I'm at a good place, and it's definitely full on this indicator, but remember our car is tilted. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to quickly move the vehicle to a level surface, check the fluid level again, and add some if it needs some. If not, I'll be done. And since we're about to move the vehicle, just check one more time underneath, make sure that there's no oil leaking. I've touched around the plug and the filter, didn't feel a single thing like oil, so ready to move it. Okay, we are now on a level surface, so what I'm going to do is take out that dipstick, and I've already wiped it off, so this is more for cinematic effect. If we look at this, look on the back, you can see that kind of that line. I'm going to give you a better visual, because sometimes reading these dipsticks can be a little bit confusing. I'm going to get closer here. So what we're looking for here is between those two lines in that ribbed area, and it looks pretty good. If you look on the other side, you can see kind of that sharp line right there. So if we turn that around, it looks like that's just barely under full. So honestly, I'm happy with that. You want to just get it in between there, this and this, and yeah, better to underfill and then slowly add more rather than overfill, because overfilling your engine is just as bad as not having enough oil. So with that, we are all set with this job. If you have any questions, put them in the comment section below. If you have any tips or tricks, please feel free to share them. And check out my other videos. I try and publish how-to videos weekly. And subscribe if this video was helpful. Again, this isn't, the perfect way, especially since I didn't use a jack or jack stands. But honestly, sometimes necessity breeds creativity. So that's what I had to do in this case, since I don't have a jack or jack stands with me right now. So regardless, Let me know if you have any questions. All the tools and items I use in this video will be linked in the description box below. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one. So as promised, here's two different types of oil filter wrenches you can get. This one is the 6-in-1 on the right here. It honestly works for certain types of filters, and it's not as universal as you might think it is, but it does the job, and it works on the Elantra. But I would recommend getting a filter wrench like this one here, because it truly is universal, as you can open it wider or close it depending on the size, and it works exactly like a wrench. So that one I really like, and I'll put one in a link in the description box below. And there's plenty more. There's filter strap wrenches, there's all sorts of different kinds out there. But if anything, I would definitely recommend having this one right here on the left.